So welcome to PortGen 2021. We are here today through a partnership with the Port of Seattle, Northwest Small Business Transportation Resource Center, and Washington PTAC. We would like to let you know that today we have Tina Boyd in the audience and from the Port of Seattle, and Aisha Kadri. And I would like Aisha to do a really quick introduction and hello, and then we'll send it over to Tina.
Thank you, Leslie. Hello, everyone. Like she said, my name is Aisha. I'm with the Sbtrc, and I'm co-hosting these workshops with Leslie with PTAC, as well as the Port of Seattle. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you get introduced to Tina Boyd. And then Tina, the floor is yours.
Hi, I don't know if you can see me. I don't know that. You guys, here, let me try to mess with my camera again.
No, we can see you.
On my end, hang on a sec. Well, for those of you, you're probably tired of my face anyway. Can you hear me okay though? Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, welcome to PortGen Goods and Services, one of my favorite tracks. Hope you are having a good time. Yesterday, I spent a fabulous day. Hopefully some of you got the opportunity to participate. SCORE had an event and they used a platform called SwapCard. I don't know if any of you have heard of it before, but I was so excited about it. It was fabulous. We had workshops, we had meetings. You could, in between the times you were waiting for your appointments, you could pop in and pop out of workshops. For those of you who attended the regional contracting forum, it was kind of hectic. It didn't go as well as the committee wanted it to go. So I'm gonna recommend they use SwapCard. So I just wanted to mention that. But I'm gonna stop talking. I will be listening to today's PortGen event. So if you have any questions for me, I will put my contact information in the chat, and hopefully I can get the camera working. But I hope you come today with lots of questions, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Actually, on your topic about SwapCard, I'm going to introduce Marnie Tyson, who's my colleague with Washington PTAC. And Washington PTAC uses SwapCard for Alliance Northwest. And last year was the first year that we had done that. And Marnie is actually our resident guru on all things SwapCard. So,
okay,
Tina,
I'm gonna be grabbing Marnie.
Yeah,
and talking to her.
She'll be a really good resource. So Marnie, why don't you just kind of give a 30,000-foot flyover on SwapCard and Alliance Northwest.
Sure. Alliance Northwest is our penultimate event every year. It is the largest government contracting event in the Pacific Northwest. And thankfully, with all the virtual, we've been able to pull in federal agencies from all across the country. This past March, when we did Alliance virtually, we were able to have representatives from agencies that don't typically come to the live event. So it was really nice. All the sessions were recorded and available, not just the day of, but we had pre-event sessions available. We had follow-up sessions available. You could schedule one-to-one. This year, I think we had over 700 individual meetings that happened during the event. We are in the planning stage for the March event coming up this spring, and keep your eyes out. The alliancenorthwest.org website I posted in the chat for anybody who's interested. Just keep an eye on that. Registration's planned to be live come December. So it's a great event and a great way to make connections, much better than any other virtual session that I've run into.
Marnie, I'm so glad to hear that, because we bragged about the Alliance event too. And I will be in contact with you because we want to know more about that, even using it on a smaller scale here at the port. So I'm glad Leslie mentioned that. So great. I'm glad to hear it.
Wonderful.
So one last thing, Marnie, how many attendees and participants did we have at Alliance last year? Do you remember?
On the virtual event,
Yeah.
we had close to 600 individuals participate at the virtual event. Generally, our in-person pre-pandemic event is higher. It's more like 750 to 850 people that walk through the event. So we're hoping that this year's virtual event will push the people counts even higher. I think last March, a lot of people were afraid of virtual events, which kept them from participating when they would normally walk through a physical event. So
That's amazing, Marnie, because I don't think the score yesterday had that many. And I would have liked to seen it more diverse. There weren't that many businesses of color there. And we were probably one of the only public agencies there, the port. So that was my only feedback there. But so far, the Alliance has been the biggest one. I mean, you guys are bigger than, I believe, than the Regional Contracting Forum this year too. So congratulations on that.
awesome, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Marnie. Thanks, Tina. And so now I think we're ready to start the first session. Today we have Yvonne Brandon, who is with Brandon Multi-Channel Marketing Services, LLC. And today she's going to talk about fundamentals of digital brand marketing. And, this ought to be pretty relative to today's industries and markets and platforms. So with that, I will turn this over to Yvonne.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you all for attending. I thought maybe I might tell you a little bit about myself and get us started. I spent 23 years in enterprise sales and sales management with the IBM Corporation, the last 12 of which were spent managing a global relationship marketing team that was focused on the needs of the executive decision makers in IBM's top global accounts. But in the mid-90s, I used my budget to commission one of the very first web platforms in any industry that was able to offer content self-selection. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. In 2005, I left Pittsburgh, moved here to Redmond, Washington, and joined Microsoft, where I had an opportunity to manage a web publishing team, which was responsible for serving up on-demand, in-language content that Microsoft's 1.9 million partner firms around the globe needed so that they could go out and sell Microsoft products to their own customers. Well, in that job, I hosted a ton of focus groups. And many of the small partner firms would send someone to the focus groups who had a dual title of sales and marketing manager. And typically that person would just work like crazy to get that sale closed. But once that big sale closed, they went back to the office and realized they had nothing in the pipeline. So I saw an opportunity for myself to fill that void for these companies. So in 2008, I resigned my job at Microsoft and started Brandon Multi-Channel Marketing Services and began taking on partners from all over the country. In fact, I had one in Israel. And I took them on as my clients. But realizing also how important social media had become as a marketing channel, I actually went back to college and in 2015, I earned certification in digital marketing from Bellevue College. However, a couple of years ago, I decided to take down my shingle and retire. But when approached to host this workshop, I simply couldn't pass up the opportunity to share those things that I've learned about digital marketing, digital branding, and how to execute in the social and web strata without breaking the bank. So here's what we're going to talk about today. I've segmented this presentation into 4 general buckets. First is the business opportunity that having a branded and website and being active on social media represents to business growth in the digital world, with special focus on Google and its dominance as the most powerful search engine in the world. And we're going to look at why. Also, the digital world can be intimidating. So we'll look at some of the perceived barriers to success that I've observed and have heard when it comes to getting started on a digital branding journey, and how to overcome any apprehensions one might feel relative to either the cost or the time required to do so, or to do it right. We'll also look at a well-branded local company that saw no barriers and used their clout to launch what I think is probably, what I think you'll agree, is one of the most meaningful and socially significant collaborative campaigns in the history of e-commerce. And of course, throughout the presentation, we're going to talk about search engine optimization, or SEO, because it is relevant both to being found by your prospects and being found by Google. And we'll talk about also the most important elements that you're going to need to have on every web homepage. Finally, we'll focus on the journey a customer takes to find you and how to map your demand generation activities and content so that you can be found. And of course, once a prospect becomes a customer, we'll look briefly at how to increase their lifetime value through a nurture process, and talk about some of the tools and resources that you'll need to nurture those customers to the next sale or to the next engagement. So there's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and get started. This quote by Bill Gates is probably more relevant now than it was in 1995 when it was first captured, along with his memo to Microsoft executive staff entitled "The Internet Tidal Wave," in which, as CEO, Gates instructed his direct reports to expand the company's internet presence. His memo went on to say, "I want to make it perfectly clear that our focus on the internet is crucial to every part of our business." The point of that memo was 26 years ago. Gates saw that the internet was fast becoming a ubiquitous force that had already changed the way people and businesses were regularly and comfortably interacting with each other online. Gates, of course, continues to be a visionary, but back then he clearly saw the business opportunity that afforded by the internet, both for Microsoft and for businesses of all sizes. So let's take a look at what that opportunity looks like today. These are global statistics that were published in January of this year by social media management company called Hootsuite. It shows that the world's population stood at 7.83 billion people at the start of 2021, and the United Nations reports that that figure is currently growing by 1% per year, which means that the global population has already increased more than 80 million people since pandemic year 2020. Unique mobile users have also grown by 93 million since January of 2020, meaning that since the start of this year, more than 8 billion people currently use their mobile phones and for both personal and business interaction, which equates to nearly 67% of the entire world's population. Why should you care? Because unlike practicing business in the pre-internet world, where most business was local, if you choose to do business globally, you can. Your business opportunities are quite limitless if your brand is online. So let's look at social media, which is another very important channel for promoting our brands. Currently, there are 4.2 billion social media users around the world, and that figure has grown by 490 million over the past 12 months. And the number of social media users is now equivalent to more than 53% of the world's total population. These channels, folks, are simply too big and too important to ignore. And the reason for that is this little thing called Google. Let me be blunt. This chart reveals that Google's true dominance over the internet. Google has 92% of market share. So when consumers and B2B buyers want to find a solution to a problem, they Google it. Ever wonder why no other company can match Google's search engine dominance? Well, part of that reason lies in basic mathematics. Google operates at an insane level, processing 3.5 billion searches every day. And to get millions of people to try a different search algorithm is expensive. Even Amazon can't compete with that. Google's strategy is to go wherever the users are and to ensure that wherever they go, a Google search is not hard to do. However, your site, your content must be optimized, which we're going to discuss shortly. Google has made it easy, by the way, for small businesses to begin the process of propagating their brand across the web by offering a series of free tools called Google My Business. They let you manage how your business appears both in a Google search and on Google Maps, but you can also include your business name and logo, hours of business, location, add photos, and monitor and reply to customer reviews, and also learn how and from where people are searching for you. That's really important intelligence that you'll want to capture. If you're just getting started with search engine optimization, your Google My Business listing is a great place to focus your early efforts. And I did put a link to Google My Business in the appendix portion of this presentation. So if you haven't already done so, I would strongly suggest that you go out there and register your business. Let's look at what digital influence involves. This illustration shows that the digital influence that your business earns rests on how effective your company is at using all these levers of power. I've been in marketing for over 30 years, and adding all these social channels certainly made my job of trying to build effective marketing strategies for my clients a lot more complex. But it did open more opportunities for my clients than any traditional channels could have done, like direct mail, 800 numbers, and business reply cards could ever do, and certainly more cost effective. In order to continue being relevant in my field, as I mentioned, I enrolled in a 2-year digital marketing certification program at Bellevue College because I needed to understand how to effectively incorporate these social media strategies for my clients. One of the most important lessons I got from those 2 years was an understanding not just of how important one's digital presence is, but also how important it is to actively manage one's digital presence, because your sites are omnipresent to anyone who is searching, even while you're asleep. So digital vigilance over digital imagery matters. And it matters because a digital footprint allows you and your business to put your best foot forward into the public domain. It gives your brand an ideal platform to communicate with customers and prospects, and gives you the opportunity to set the narrative as to who you are as a brand and set yourself apart from your competitors. And while it does indeed involve a website, it can also include areas outside of your control, such as conversations about your brand on social media and online reviews. In fact, according to Salesforce.com, 85% of consumers conduct research before they make a purchase online. And among the most used channels for research are websites at 74% and social media at 38%. Consequently, businesses of all sizes need an effective online strategy to increase brand awareness and grow. And by the way, the term online hub is often interchangeable with website. However, they represent two really different forms of online activity. A website is primarily a one-way conversation. You might have a contact form or a comments section on the site, but for the most part, a website is pretty much like an online brochure. On the other hand, an online hub is interactive. It brings together all the elements of your online activity under one roof and encourages community and conversation. Either way, when your business is online, it can be located 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's not only important to be online, but to pay close attention and manage your digital influence and your reputation. These are some reasons why you need to manage your digital reputation. Technology has made it a whole lot easier to learn about a company and its services, but that first visit needs to make a good first impression. And because you're in complete control over your content and your social media, you have 100% control over delivering a kind of first impression that you want to portray. Another reason involves stakeholders, many of whom do their research online before they make decisions of any kind, even decisions about who to go work for. If you want to see what I mean, visit a site called glassdoor.com, where current and former employees anonymously review their companies and those management teams. You are going to find some really interesting insights, both good and bad, on companies of all sizes. Another reason to manage your digital influence is that most businesses can no longer depend on having just a few key influencers to tout their expertise. Visitors like to read how most of an entity's customers feel about their products and services before they make a decision to engage. And of course, relevance, which means that simply pushing out content into the digital world is no longer good enough. The content that you promote must have meaning and relevance to your intended audience, which is why it is so important to optimize your content with the words and phrases that your audience is likely to use in a Google search to find you. And finally, reputation. You can only really promote your business. You can't really promote your business everywhere, but you can be found online and it can be visible everywhere all the time, which really makes it important, an important benefit of being online. However, issues can arise and appear on multiple platforms before you're even aware of it. This last one, reputation, requires reputation management to avoid risk to your brand. Once something negative is out there in cyberland, it's important to address it both publicly and privately with the person or persons who have posted those negative comments. Online reputation management, or ORM, is a practice of using digital marketing tactics and channels to help shape the public perception of a brand, of an organization, or even an individual online. And yes, bad reviews can have a negative impact on sales and business opportunities. 92% of consumers say that they learn about a business by reading online reviews. And 67% of those people say it takes between 1 and 3 bad reviews to decide against doing a business with a particular company. And there isn't much we can do about this evil guy over here because there's scammers out there and there's malware to be had, except to say, be sure to use spam blockers and malware and virus protection on all your systems, and instruct the people who work for you to stay vigilant and not click on any links in emails from suspicious sources or unknown sources. It could be very dangerous. Online reputation management is proactively managing your reputation. It means you need to metaphorically keep your ear to the ground, which involves monitoring social media and customer ratings so you can respond appropriately and hopefully diffuse the situation. These are 2 examples of responses to negative comments against National Car Rental and JetBlue, although both companies probably have people whose full-time job it is to monitor social media content because they're so big. However, regardless of a company's size, the mitigation steps are the same, as you see here. Acknowledge the issue, apologize, provide an explanation if needed, compensate if appropriate, but 100% of the time, invite that person to take that discussion of that matter offline. You can say something as simple as, we're sorry for your experience with our brand, and we would like to see how we can help resolve the issue and make this right for you. Can you please send me your email to my contact information, and so I can follow up with you directly? This reassures the customer that you are interested in making the situation better, and you can hopefully begin to change their opinion of your brand. Responding to negative reviews is important and has become a key part of a continuous cycle of improving the customer experience. SEO and digital presence and social media responsive designs, they can be somewhat daunting. So I think we should look at some of the issues, some of the barriers to success and ways to overcome them. Your customers do expect you to be online, so having a digital presence is not optional. If the idea of branding your business is overwhelming because you have a small budget, there is some good news. You can build awareness and increase exposure for your digital brand without a massive budget. Now, I know, because when I left Microsoft and I had all that budget and came to work for myself, I found all kinds of free and low cost resources, which I've shared with some of these I've shared with you in the appendix. But if you know where to post and a few strategic ways to interact with your audience online, you can do a lot even with the smallest budget. For example, list your company on a site like Google My Business, which we already talked about, but there are also sites like Bing Places and Yahoo local listings that you can also leverage, hundreds of them actually. These listing sites are really an easy way to increase your chances of being found online. Secondly, you can inspire user-generated content. If you have a customer who has a great success story that involves you, ask them to tell it and give them multiple options on how to do so. For some customers, recording a video is perfect. For others, it might be an audio recording of an interview or something as simple as just taking photographs and sharing them online. Third is collaborating with a partner in an effective way to build your brand on a budget. One of the major benefits of co-branding is the ability to expand your reach by accessing your partner's audience and they by accessing yours. Pooling resources by creating co-branded content is a low-cost way to establish a partnership and allows you to build credibility with an entirely new audience. And again, they with yours. I don't think any business should feel they need to come out of the chute attempting to do everything at once, because establishing online credibility and trust takes time, but it can be achieved through a stepped approach like crawl, walk, run. You should define your digital branding goals, then launch a website that reflects your messaging strategy. Optimize your content again with the words and phrases your audience will use when they Google you, Google your solutions, and then start building a database of contacts. I would really suggest investing in a low-cost email marketing system or marketing automation platform that you can begin using to stay in touch with the visitors to your site. Then pick your social media platforms and just get started. As promised, let's take a look at one of the most creative and far-reaching, mutually beneficial collaborations that I think I've ever seen, that was orchestrated by our very own local e-commerce giant, REI. REI, or Recreational Equipment, Inc., is a leading and local retailer of specialty outdoor equipment and clothing, and reaches revenues of close to $1 billion a year. According to their website, REI has over 6 million active members. I'm one of them, making them the nation's largest co-op The true strength of this company is that they have turned their customers into owners, creating a true sense of loyalty to their company. But while REI was a very successful and still is online store, they knew they were missing a key opportunity with women. So in 2016, REI commissioned a national study with 2,000 women across geography, race, and education. They wanted to better understand women's relationships to and attitudes toward the outdoors and the external pressures they faced. The study revealed that 85% of all women surveyed believed that the outdoors positively affects their mental and physical health, happiness, and overall well-being, and reported that 70% reported being outdoors as being liberating. However, the study also revealed that 85% of women surveyed, that there were obstacles, that 63% of the women surveyed said they could not think of even one outdoor female role model. And 6 in 10 women said men's interest in outdoor activities are taken much more seriously than women's activities. So in April of 2017, REI introduced Force of Nature concept to begin driving excitement for women's movements and to educate consumers both on why Force of Nature is important and how they could participate. The campaign had 4 components. First and foremost was a comprehensive effort to change the male-dominated image of people in the outdoors. Secondly, they made a $1 million commitment to support nonprofits that create opportunities for women outdoors, in the outdoors. And third was a stepped up effort to develop and offer high quality technical gear and apparel for women. And lastly was the launch of over 1,000 events designed for women, which began in May of 2017. The traffic was either, it was directed to this landing page, and I've kind of circled things for you here, that either came to them from a display ad or through email campaigns. But when a visitor arrived at that landing page, they immediately see a call to action button to earn $20 in a digital bonus card if they spend $100 or more. But there's a second call to action button which says, join us in putting women front and center with these 1,000 upcoming events. Then once you click the join us button, it goes right to this video. Tell me if you can see this video.
These are the voices we've heard our whole lives. But they get harder to hear the further out we go.
Oops. Okay, I don't care if you're male or female, that had to be a compelling video, one of the most compelling I've ever seen. And what REI did, I'm sorry, am I still on that slide? Oh, there we go. So in their ads, REI uses hashtags like hashtag opt outside, hashtag united outside, and of course, hashtag force of nature. The purpose is to encourage sharing that video across mediums like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and they did. Hashtags are recognized pretty much by every form of social media, and they encourage people both to consume content and to share and make it go viral. These are just some of the platforms that they use that I wanted to share with you. According to REI, these are their accomplishments as a result of that campaign. Gender equity in gear and support, more sizes for women, and I can assure you, not all of us are Barbie dolls. Closing the gear gap by not distinguishing women's gear from male gear by making it pink or adorning it with flowers. Funding events for women that made them feel included. And of course, spotlighting women like you just saw in that video, swimming, camping, summiting a mountain, and generally enjoying all the wonders of outdoors. As a feature in that video, they're basically telling women, you know, don't believe everything you've been told about yourself. Don't wait your turn. These are wonderful pronouncements by REI, but what about the impact to their business and their traffic on those sites? Between August of 2019 and January of this year, REI's e-commerce site was visited by 17.2 million unique users. Average time spent on the site was 4 minutes and 25 seconds, with an average of 5.74 pages viewed while on the site. Their bounce rate, which I wanted to talk about because it's 48.55%. It seems high and usually is interpreted as a negative on a regular website, meaning that someone has left your site. But in the case of an e-commerce site that sells products and services, this number might actually represent a good bounce rate. For example, REI features excellent blog posts on their sites and in social media, and a well-written blog post, which REI has, can satisfy a user, causing them to leave after having absorbed it. And since most users land on a blog article through a link on social media, they're likely to return to that site after having read it. This is natural user behavior, which makes high bounce rates inevitable. However, the result is an exit from your site, and either way, Google Analytics marks this as a bounce. The best thing you can do is to analyze your own site's performance by comparing yourself to where you fall among your competitors. And to round out this slide, Facebook is the most used social media platform for REI, and with Twitter being in last place. Still, there are visitors to those lesser visited platforms. Therefore, it's important for the company to recognize that and invest time and resources into posting that content to those sites. I'm going to go quickly through these next 3 slides. They'll be in your deck when you take a look in case you want to examine it a little bit more. This slide is basically the events that REI visitors are most interested in. This one is the content that they found most engaging. And the third one here are the products that they liked the most. So let's switch gears now and look at an ideal representation of one's homepage and the elements that populate it. These are the 11 most have elements that need to be on prominently featured on every web or hub homepage, or a responsive site that shows up on one's cell phone. Number 1 is a logo, which plays a huge role in a company's branding strategy. The logo is basically the face of the company's brand and the first visible manifestation of the company's website. So it's most important to have a unique and clear website logo, which represents your brand at a glance. And to make it easy for your visitors to know what type of website they're visiting, post your logo at the top left area of your homepage as such, and accompany it if you can with a great tagline if you have one. If you want your visitors to stay on your page, you should create a clear value proposition to accompany your logo. Number 2 of course, is clear navigation. Social media integration, sorry. We've already talked about that. I'll go on to clear navigation. Just as a map is pretty useless without a legend, a website is totally useless without clean, clear, understood navigation. In fact, navigation and design plays a huge role in user satisfaction and engagement, also in website traffic and search engine rankings. Navigation should be clearly understandable by your audience and help them explore your website content easily. Include standard navigation either at the top or on the left side, which is both expected and user-friendly. And make sure that to include accurate navigation titles for your internal pages of your site, like About Us, Contact Us, Frequently Asked Questions, Services, Blogs, and so on. And please, before you go live, don't forget to check whether your links and navigation are working properly or broken. There is nothing more annoying to a user than to be excited to learn more and landing on a 404 page or file not found error. That's nothing more than an invitation for a user to move on. Number 4 is contact information. Just like a 404 error is annoying to a visitor, the same is true with missing contact information. Suppose a visitor lands on your homepage and wants to have a business discussion, but they couldn't find how to get in touch with you. How frustrating would that be, not only for the user and his experience, but for your business, because you would eventually end up losing a potential client. Always remember that contact information is the most crucial business detail that you need to promote. So make it easy for them to find. The most common place to find contact information on anybody's website is in the footer. And make sure it has your information, email address, mailing address, phone number, whatever you need in order for that person to reach you, and perhaps even a form so that they can leave you their contact information. Number 5 is calls to action. Talked a little bit about this, what the REI did, but the primary goal of a homepage is to attract visitors and keep them browsing on your site in an effort to turn them into leads. So design your homepage in such a way that whenever a visitor lands there, they have a clear idea of what action to take just by browsing your page. But before designing calls to action, please be clear yourself on what actions you really want your audience to take. Do you want them to fill out a form, register for an event, subscribe to your newsletter, learn more about your products and services, whatever it is? Optimize your CTAs per your need and limit the copy to something really brief, no more than 5 words, something like request a quote, sign up, register for free trial, they'll get it. It's best to include a primary and secondary call to action, just like REI did on your homepage. Including more than 2 may offer too many options for your audience and confuse them. So don't overdo it, but definitely 2 at minimum. Number 6 is proof. A client testimonial is the most powerful indicator of trust and the most effective way to humanize your brand. You reassure your potential client that your business is genuine. You assure the visitor that your products and services provided by you are excellent and that they are liked by your other clients. According to Bright Local, nearly 9 out of 10 consumers read online reviews, and more than 88% say they rely on those reviews and testimonials before they give any newfound source any consideration whatsoever. Then there are benefits and features. Identify those key features that differentiate you from your competitors. It's not only important to describe what your company does, but it's also important to describe why what your company does matters. Most users, both online and offline, want to know what benefits they're going to get from doing business with a company and why they should choose that company to deliver those benefits. You need to compel them to stay, and the best thing to do, again, is to choose the right words and give a short overview of your company. Include the main features of your company and the benefits your potential clients could have from you in that overview. And don't forget to include your keywords within that content. Also add read more, learn more links, which is going to redirect your viewers or your visitors to your About Us page. You always want them to go there. I've included a list of some popular keywords in the appendix that hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of in your professions. Number 8 are supporting images. Research shows that images are the best way to attract and get people more connected to your site. It shows that they prefer real images rather than stock photos. So make sure your images that you're using are clearly indicate what you have to offer and that they completely match your website theme. High resolution photos of your team members are found to portray your company's image by showing your professionalism. So, but don't take pictures with your cell phone unless you have a really good camera. If necessary, hire a photographer. It is a worthwhile investment. And oh, don't forget, you also need to consider your mobile users. So use high resolution images that also have a reduced file size. And don't forget to add alt text, alternative text, if you will, to your images so that they can be searchable within Google. Number 9 are awards, certificates, and associations. Don't be shy about showcasing any of these, your professional associations or any civic associations to which you belong. Why not take advantage of the hard work you've done to receive recognition in your profession, or to highlight any philanthropy you've contributed to society for the public good? Awards, certifications, and associations speak to the quality of your work and help you build an image of a trusted business partner. So make good use of this powerful client attractive weapon in your homepage. Number 10 is content marketing, which plays an enormous role in pleasing both your audience and search engines like Google. And a great content marketing strategy always includes a blog. A blog is just a terrific medium to communicate with your audience and to gain more followers and visitors and drive more traffic to your website. Because blogs contain fresh content, current ideas and topics, your blog post should be the heart of your marketing content strategy. Many business website owners find that including a blog in the section on their homepage has not only helped them get more visitors, but has also helped them improve their search engine rankings. So make sure to promote it wherever you find an opportunity, both on your homepage, in social media, and even in the press. I've included a link to a site called Harrow, which stands for Help a Reporter Out. Harrow is an online service for journalists. You subscribe to their email, which comes out twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, always seeking input from sources who have expertise related to the stories that they're doing research on. You get the attribution in their stories that you can add to your accolades. And number 11 is web content accessibility for to satisfy the Americans with Disability Act, which requires that all it's called a Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WAGI 2. Requires that all technology, including websites, must grant barrier-free access to people with disabilities. For websites, this means meeting web content guidelines as standard. It requires web designers to make the web more accessible to a wider range of people with disabilities, including accommodations for blindness and low vision, deafness and hearing loss, limited movement, along with many other challenges that the web platforms must include including mobile devices. Accessibility is essential for developers and organizations that want to create high-quality websites and web tools and not exclude people from using their products and services. So let's move on to the customer's journey. We as small business owners need to understand that nothing we do for, to, or with our digital branding strategies matters at all without being crystal clear on what the prospect's journey looks like toward becoming our customers. This is called a customer journey map. There are many different forms of it. I just chose this one as an example. It outlines a customer's complete experience encompassing all customer interactions across all channels and touch points throughout every stage of their life cycle, from awareness to loyalty. The modern customer journey takes place in 6 phases: interest, awareness, search, research, conversion or purchase, and if they really value what you have to offer, advocacy. All this can start long before the customer is even aware of your brand and can extend well past that first purchase. It includes how you acquire new leads and how you retain existing customers. Their journey typically starts with the prospect having seen an article, a blog, or some form of advertising, maybe a display ad on a website or a Google AdWords ad. For those companies that have a customer journey strategy in place, they've been able to reduce cost, improve sales performance, and overall are much more profitable. When it comes to content, one size rarely fits all. So to ensure that your company's content is effective at generating and nurturing leads, you need to deliver the right content to the right people at the right time. And content mapping is the process of doing that. With content mapping, the goal is to target content across the characteristics of the person who will be consuming it. And that's where buyer personas come in. A buyer persona is a fictional, generalized representation of your ideal customer. They help you understand your customer and prospects, making it easier for you to tailor content to their specific needs, behaviors, and the concerns of those different groups. The strongest buyer personas are based on market research, as well as insights you gather from your actual customers through surveys and interviews, so on. And depending on your client base, you could have as few as 1 or 2 personas, or as many as 10 to 20. If you're just getting started with personas, don't go crazy. You can always develop more later, but at least get started so that you understand what the needs and issues are that you're targeting. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide because it pretty much explains itself. However, I will say that the planning process is vital to the success of your digital branding presence and marketing process. The last thing you want to do is leave out a step that puts you in risk of making a very visible mistake in your always on platforms. So once you develop that buyer persona or personas, the next step is for you and your team to spend some time fleshing out your digital branding and marketing plans. If you don't have a team, I would encourage you to hire someone to develop your strategy with you. Your brand's reputation is too important not to spend the time you need to make sure you're doing it right. Mapping content to the buyer's journey creates a guide for delivering that right content to the right person at the right time. Buyers are looking for different information at different stages in their journey. So you must create a diverse range of content to answer their questions and communicate your value. Depending on the industry, it takes time to get your audience from awareness to the advocacy stage. However, to create the best customer experience possible, you need to leverage your customer journey map to get organized and plan your content like this across multiple channels. Early stage content probably is going to fall within public digital channels like search and social. Mid-stage and nurture content is going to fall within your email or marketing automation process, which is why you need to contain that database. A big part of your planning process is going to focus on building a solid, fireproof messaging plan that maps to content, to your customers' personas. All of your customer-facing materials should reflect messaging that you built into this framework. These next 2 pages are much more complex than what you want to create. I built this for my largest client to promote their CRM product. And since it's their intellectual property, I did a global search and replace to get the real company name out of there. And I just used company name as the company name. But anyway, your messaging plan should clearly define your target audience, as we said, identify their pain points, and contain messaging pillars to appeal to each decision maker and affected department. The first item on the second page here assures the reader that knowledgeable help is on its way, and that the challenges the client faces through these departmental proof points is going to solidify exactly how those challenges will be overcome by the company that helps implement for you. Again, this is a whole lot more than you may want to create, but you do have to have a messaging plan so that everyone in the company is using the same words and phrases to create any materials that you're going to publish. Then once your prospect becomes a customer, you need to nurture them. Nurture is simply the art of educating, and adding value to your audience to further your relationship with them. This slide that I'm showing you now, it was also built for that same CRM client to illustrate all of their data sources and where their customer data is going to be stored, including a no contact database for customers who have opted out of receiving email. The company deliberately tracks actions taken and the input from social media channels to inform what information customers want to see more of and what emails should be deployed later to keep them informed. A NAITIS group found that nurtured leads make 47% larger purchases than non-nurtured leads. Juniper Research found that relevant emails drive 18 times more revenue than broadcast emails. Aberdeen Group sees that email improves click-through rates at 14% and conversion rates by 10%. And Demand Gen reports that nurtured leads produce an average of a 20% increase in sales opportunities versus non-nurtured leads. As we conclude, I'd just like to stress again that you don't need to do everything at once to digitize your brand, nor should you try until you've piloted some things that are necessary for your own business. So we looked at opportunities that being digital affords your business. We've talked about Google and how important it is to use keywords and phrases in your content so you can be found. We talked about risks to your brand and how to mitigate those risks. And we've looked at the customer journey and the importance of understanding that journey and mapping content to where the customer is in that journey. And of course, customer retention and nurture. In the appendix, as I've mentioned, I've provided links and slides to cost-effective resources that you can leverage in your digital branding efforts. I truly hope this information I've shared today proves useful, and I'm going to stop now and see if anyone has any questions. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Yvonne. You know, it's such a different world than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And, you know, for all things on brand, all things, you know, with marketing, you know, you really have a comprehensive overview of all of these items. I see that Andrew has raised his hand, and we'll let him ask a question.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Yvonne. Looking at the Americans with Disabilities Act, trying to get through, say, for example, an entirely new website design, written in code, invented by the guy who you just hired to build your website. How does one go about making sure that that website is compatible with, I think it's called Shark or JAWS, this text to speech type of programs for the blind, or these other programs that exist that are also not necessarily open source, they're not necessarily old and well known. Is there any kind of world where a new developer would have a good single pool? Like, is there a website, for example, just here's all the code you need to be ADA compliant?
Yes, there certainly is. That's a great question. And it's, if you go to WCAG 2.1, you get the most recent information on web accessibility for ADA. WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And I read through them, and I tell you what, they are complete. They cover in many more disabilities, I guess is the best way to put it, than what I read to you today or shared with you today. The even mentally challenged guidelines are included in WCAG. So have you,
I'm gonna have to look into that.
can you see it? You want me to put, I can put it into the.
I put the link in chat, just looking over the whole thing and dealing with special needs child myself, as well as a lot of speech to text type of software, and knowing a couple of blind folks. It's it's a very, or text to speech, sorry, it goes both directions, but it's very important. And I've seen a lot, I've had one client that just absolutely brick walled, and they're like, we can't write code to match that. This code doesn't fit with it. It's like, well, you're probably not gonna be able to launch with it. And I'm trying to find resources so the next time I bump into that, it'll be like, oh no, here you go.
Oh yeah.
Start here.
Well, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 is what you want to find. You want me to put it into the chat? I can pull this.
Yeah, go ahead, Yvonne.
Okay.
All right, that was the entire question. Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. It's an excellent, which is why I added number 11 to the presentation from the other day. Okay, let me just find that real quick. Does anyone else have any questions while I look this up?
Well, Yvonne, one of the things that I know about small businesses is that they think they can do everything themselves.
Yes.
You know, how hard is it to build a website? You know, I can figure out WordPress and, you know, GoDaddy will do this for me and do that. But the reality for serious business people is, you know, you need to start out looking good and not, you know, in a skeletal framework in the beginning, you know, that you think, well, I'll add more later. And then if your business is growing, you don't have time, and maybe you used an obsolete coding or something, you know, the basic HTML, you know, or is it ASP or, you know, PHP or whatever. And so, you know, my recommendation for small business is to bring somebody on board, a professional who knows layout and design, and now, you know, all the other things that come into play, the technical side of it, the ADA side of it, and yeah, and even the back end side of it. Yeah, because if you're a small company, you know, maybe managing the emails is something you can easily do. You know, configure emails, forward emails, you know, things like that. Whereas if you're a medium or a larger company, you probably have a department that should be doing that. But yeah, anyway, there's a million different ways that you can guide your small businesses to look good right out the gate. And it's funny. When I was in graduate school, which was a long time ago, the internet was just getting started. And, it was the great equalizer at that time, because it didn't matter if you were on a Mac or if you were on a PC, you could see the same information. And, there's so much evolution since then, but now it comes heavily encumbered with so many other things that have to be taken into consideration. So no, I get it probably better than a lot of people, because back in the 90s, I taught myself HTML so that I could create my own presentations in the classroom on a Mac, whereas I was using a PC all the time. And if I could build it to be seen on a browser, then that worked for me. But anyway, and there's so many more improvements, instead of the actual hand coding, be it front page, that kind of was an option for a few years, or Netscape had an editor, everybody had an editor. And now it's so much more sophisticated that a small unknowing company can get into a lot of trouble that's hard to get out of just on the technical side. So yeah, no, this was really worthwhile presentation. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And you're absolutely right. The templates are there, but there still needs to be somebody who understands the usefulness of those templates and laying them out properly. Templates have made it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But they still need expertise in design. So I agree with you. They should hire somebody.
Okay, so if we have any more questions, and if we don't, again, we'd like to thank Yvonne for coming today. Fernando Martinez is here already. And I think that since we have a couple minutes to kill, those of us that are up and running maybe should do like an overview of who we are and what we do. And Aisha, because you're Sbtrc, why don't you introduce yourself to Fernando and kind of tell him a little bit about Sbtrc and your position, and then we'll hand it off to the next guy when you get done.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Leslie. Hi, Fernando. So my name is Aisha, and I'm the project director for the Sbtrc. I've been in this role for a few months now, and we do a bunch of different things across 5 different states. So I run the Northwest region, and there's 11 regions across the United States. So my territory runs from Montana, Idaho, Alaska, Washington, and Oregon. And one of the things that we do is the bonding education program. And then we also do a Women in Transportation initiative, where we host interns and kind of spread the word for women in transportation. And alongside that, we also host workshops like these with our amazing partners at PTAC and the Port of Seattle. And that's kind of a pretty good overview for what I do. So Leslie, I'll go ahead and let you hand it off to the next person.
Well, we'll go to Andrew and let Andrew fill in Martinez on being the go-to guy.
Hi, I'm Andrew Miller. I work with, I'm an independent consultant working with PTAC and Sbtrc, just in general, learning from everything you guys are doing, and then helping throw in some information here and there. If you've got some links in your presentation, I'll drop those into the convo. And then also pretty good at staying in contact with everybody involved. So if we need to do any future conversations, uploads to the Dropbox, scheduling and whatnot, then I'll probably be somebody you'll talk to down the road as well.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And and what we do is so necessary and collaborative, right? So we have to kind of stay in touch with everybody. And Aisha, I cover I cover 7 states. So 5 of them overlap with what you're doing.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Which are the 2 other states?
Wyoming and Utah.
Oh,
Utah is
nice.
one of our biggest territories. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Lots of Black businesses and lots of Hispanic businesses in Utah.
Nice.
Good to know that.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go to Marnie next. Marnie Tyson is from Washington, PTAC.
Hey there, me and my kitty here, Fluffy, whoop, there she goes, are here from Washington PTAC, providing services to Washington-based businesses for government contracting. I've known Fernando for a long time. We've been around in the same circles for a while now.
Yes.
But I refer people over there and I hear referrals back. So it's nice to see more resources out there. It's amazing how many resources are available that people have no idea on. So I think being able to share each other's contact information, what we do, how we support, because it's all a little bit different, is very beneficial. So knowing who the other resources are in the field, being able to share back and forth is really, really beneficial to the business community at whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, we're always referring people to PTAC.
Wonderful. We
Thanks, Marnie.
appreciate it.
So I think we'll move on to Port of Seattle. We have Tina Boyd here today. And,
Hi.
and I know that Port of Seattle works very closely with Fernando's office, but Tina, just in case you don't know Fernando.
Oh, no, I don't know him. Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. So I probably have known him probably the longest, huh, Fernando?
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah, we've known each other for a long, long time, Tina. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, my camera's not working. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but how are you?
I used to have a dark goatee when I met Tina. So
We're all getting a few grays nowadays. But I'm happy to see Fernando. Yes, we go way back and we do a lot of things with Fernando. I go to his conference every year, the national conference, and I miss it. We having one next year?
it's this year is going to be virtual again, Tina, because there's there's
this
still,
year. Yeah. I'm talking next year.
Depending on how we recover, from this pandemic. But right now, everything through the end of the year is virtual, and considering next year doing some live stuff.
Right. Well, if any of you have ever had an opportunity, I always come back feeling so energized, and that there are businesses from the East Coast and the South that you can engage with that are doing so well. So that's something I look forward to doing every year. Oh, I got a few more years, Fernando. We better have another one. But again, my dear friend, welcome, Fernando.
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tina. And finally, our previous presenter today is Yvonne Brandon. And Yvonne, are you still on the line here?
Yes. Oops. Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi,
Oops, I
Yvonne.
moved my camera. Yeah, I'm Yvonne Brandon, and I'm a retired marketing professional, and I just had an opportunity to talk with folks about e-commerce websites and how to make them effective. Good to know you, Fernando.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Are you in the Seattle area, Yvonne?
I'm in Redmond, yes.
Oh, in Redmond. Okay. So a lot of our businesses reside in Redmond. So Bellevue, we have a good portion of business in Bellevue, really good portion of businesses in Redmond. But the critical mass is actually here in Seattle.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. I'm looking forward to your presentation. That's why I'm
Thank
staying
you.
around.
Thank you.
Okay, Fernando. Well, I think that we're ready to have you move on, and we're very privileged to have you, as part of the PortGen 2021. And now that some of us have your contact information, I'm sure that as we move forward on other events and stuff, that we'll tap into you as a resource for our clients and also for some of our activities. So thank you for coming today, and I'll just turn it all over to you.
Well, thank you, Leslie, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone and to kind of like bring forth, some of the things that we're doing at the council. And so thank you for this opportunity. So I just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. Yes.
Yes. I can see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So here we go. Let me see. There we go. So first of all, I'd like to start by, letting everybody know that last year, our advocacy awards for public agency went to the Port of Seattle. And these awards are very important because it's not the council that selects them. It's the actual minority businesses that select the award winners. And so we're very proud of the fact that the Port of Seattle has been a partner with us since, I believe, 1992. And so very, very pleased to have given them that award before. And Tina has won Advocate of the Year award in the past as well. So congratulations to the Port of Seattle. So what I'm going to do for the next couple of minutes is talk a little bit about who we are, talk a little bit about supplier diversity, the development and growth, how to contact us, and then we'll open it up for any questions and answers. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're independent 501c3 and we function as independent. We have our own independent board of directors. We actually raise our own funding, but we are members and we are partners with the National Minority Supplier Development Organization, which is a national footprint. And there are 23 councils such as the ones that we have here in Seattle. And we all network and we all partner together. And so we all collaborate together. So I'll give you an example. We pursued a couple of big grants over the summer collectively. And so as an organization, we're always looking to not only independently within our region to provide services to minority businesses, but we're also focused on how do we do it regionally and how do we do it nationally. The importance of what we do, and I get questions around this so much, the importance of why we focus on the ethnic minority businesses is very simple. It's our mission, and our mission is based and founded on the fact that out of 11 businesses, or it's a 10-to-1 ratio of majority-owned businesses to minority businesses. And so when you put the numbers together, what you see is that the numbers work against minority businesses. If you put 11 people in the room, higher probability that the procurement people are going to buy from a non-minority business just because of the numbers. So it's a 7-to-1 ratio of majority male, and it's a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio of majority female to minority businesses. Our mission is very, very important, and it goes deep, right? It's not just about, hey, helping minority businesses. It's really about creating opportunity and building economic value. It's about building economic value, not only for our minority businesses, but for our partners like the Port of Seattle, for our corporate members, for our employees, the children of the employees. So we look deep down beyond just connecting businesses with the Port of Seattle. We look at it downstream so that our value proposition is 3 generations down. Now, as we look at foundationally how we operate, I'm trying to get rid of this. How do I get rid of this little banner on the bottom here? As we operate, we have 4 foundational pillars. We certify firms. We make sure that we validate them as being ethnic minority firms. We develop them. We help them identify opportunities for growth and development. We connect them. We create this network of businesses with public agencies and with our corporate members. And through this network, we find that we've been able to build from 5 years ago, our businesses were earning about $6 billion a year. Collectively, in aggregate, we are well over $8 billion a year. And it's all through this network that we've built. It's all through the development that we've built. It's all through this body of professionals like yourselves and the professionals like the minority businesses and those people that work within corporate America and our public agencies that help build that money, right? So, and then lastly, we're advocates. We are, as a 501c3, we cannot publicly endorse any candidates, or we cannot publicly endorse any sort of legislation. But what we can do is we can educate. So we were very, very involved in the education of not the legislation, but the efforts that we were working against I-200. And those of you that know that I-200 has been so detrimental to our businesses of color, we were strong advocates in the proposition of overturning it. Now, we weren't successful because the numbers were against us, but it gave us an opportunity to be out there in front advocating for these minority businesses. So I want to talk a little bit about supplier diversity and what it really is. And because that's the foundation, if we look at certify, if we look at develop, if we look at network, at connect, and we look at advocate, the common thread across all of those is the engagement of supplier diversity. And so very briefly, supplier diversity is a very, very simple concept, but it is very, 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 very hard to implement. But it's a process which creates fair and equitable engagements to participate in the opportunities to increase your business as you deliver value. And I've just abbreviated the little definition that I wrote years ago, because that's what it comes down to: fair and equitable opportunity to participate. And when we find that we're equitably able to participate, we find that we win business. And when we win business, we increase value. So the supplier diversity has been around since 1973. It was actually signed into an executive order by President Richard Nixon in 1973. And it's been around for 50 years. This is the first time that supplier diversity has actually gotten to the table. And it's unfortunate that it took the social injustice experience we just went through over the last couple of years to really bring supplier diversity to a heightened level. And the reason I say that is because there's always been focus on workforce development. There's always been focus on market development. What are the markets like? What does the community look like? How do we give back the communities from where we take profits? You know, how do we make sure that we bring in the right people? But it's always been around market diversity, workforce diversity, and supplier diversity has always been something kind of in the shadows, because people have not understood that supplier diversity is a money-making strategy. And through competition, through collaboration, through inclusion of a diverse supply chain, you actually create net income. And when you create net income from a operations perspective, you really, it's bottom line new revenue. It's not you buy something to gain net income. You're performing, you're creating efficiencies, and you're dropping that efficiency into the bottom line, right? So now supplier diversity is actually seated at the table. And so now there's 3 core pillars to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Marketplace diversity. How do we philanthropically give back to those communities from whom we take? Workforce diversity. How do we actually verticalize the workforce from top to bottom that says we are a diverse organization? And supplier diversity. How do we diversify our supply chain so that at the end of the day, we're more effective, we're more efficient, we deliver better customer value, and by the way, we make money, we save money. So this trend, and what I mean by this trend is that it was a battle. It was a battle, and now it's much easier to have these conversations. The importance of supplier diversity and these statistics, the 43% efficiency gains. I have some friends at Accenture, and we had a long conversation about when you bring in competition and when you bring in this level of innovation, what does that mean? And their studies say that when you integrate diverse firms into your supply chain, you gain about 43% in efficiencies. When you actually bring them in, there's a 133% return cost on procurement operations. And what I mean by that is that the cost savings that you bring in are so significant that you're actually covering your cost and you're actually dropping that 33% back into the net income. Net savings on average is about 18%. So that competition drives innovation, it drives creativity, it drives efficiencies, and it drives bottom line revenue. So that's why supplier diversity is so important. Now, as we look at development and growth, that's one of our core pillars. How do we prepare not only the minority businesses to do business with corporate America and the public agencies, but how do we prepare the corporate members and the public agencies to do business with the minority businesses? It's not one-sided. It has to be both ways. So there's a couple things that we do. One of the first things that we do is we really try to focus on developing competency. And this quadrant right here that we developed about 2 years ago came after a lot of thought, a lot of research, and a lot of interviews with not only corporate members, but with MBEs. And we call it our competency equals CQ plus Q, right? So first of all, it's like, are you qualified to do business with the Port of Seattle? I mean, are you licensed? Do you have a legitimate business license? Are you, what are the minimum requirements that it takes for you to do business with the Port of Seattle? The next is, are you capable? Do you have the capabilities? And the reason that we put it into this quadrant perspective is because people always talk, hey, do they have the capabilities? Or do they have the competencies? Or do they have the quality? But it's not one or the other, it's all. And so when we talk about, do you have the capabilities? That means, do you have the skill? Do you have the know-how? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the expertise? Can you really do what you say you're going to do? And then there's the capacity. So can you scale up when the time comes for you to grow with the Port of Seattle? Can you contract when the time comes for you to slow down a little bit? Or are you going to like really kind of like all of a sudden you've scaled up, the thing slowed down, and then you're stuck with 100 extra people in your workforce, right? So can you scale up and can you scale down? Are you elastic in that particular fashion, right? Do you have the administrative capacity to do the work, right? Can you actually do the work? Can you do the reporting? Can you do the certifications? Can you do your licensing? Can you do all of this stuff as you continue to grow? And then lastly, it's about the contracts. You have the contracts that tell the Port of Seattle, Tina Boyd has done this at this place, this place, this place, this place. Here's the results that Tina Boyd brought to us. And so, yes, she has the experience contractually proven that we can do, that she can do the work. And that's how we measure competency. Now, there's a couple of things that there's a couple of ways that we can do our development. And one of that is to really kind of like, we have a very curated model where we actually do outreach, we do assessments, we develop competencies, we measure, and that's important. And then we measure the outcomes, right? So we do everything from learning how to respond to RFPs, learning how to source for opportunities. We do everything from access to capital. We do all of these curated learnings that we actually are able to perform and do, because over the years of experience, we've understood what it takes. And there's 4 levels of candidates that we work with. The first level are those individuals that are barely starting, right? And those are the individuals that we kind of put into the incubator phase, right? So what really is your business? How do we help you define your business? What is it that you actually are trying to do, and how do we help you get there, right? For some of those folks, we've got some specific programming that we can help them, right? Just with how do you build your business plan? And then we've got the incubator. This is where the majority of our minority businesses fall into play. And these incubators are these bodies that are in the accelerator phase. These are the firms that we can kind of like say, okay, like I see what your competencies are. I see what Port of Seattle needs. We need to put the 2 of you together, because this is where the business is going to happen. This is where the magic is going to happen. Those that are in that accelerator phase, we just kind of keep moving them back and forth, not forgetting that they still need development, because those that are in that accelerator phase have the tendency to move so fast that they outpace themselves. So sometimes we have to kind of bring them back and kind of help them like, okay, now where are you in your life cycle? We help them kind of reground and recover so that they can get to the next level. Because we find that once you hit that $1 million mark, getting to 10 million is really, really fast. And that's when they get lost. So we kind of try to bring them back so that once they start going like, I don't know what I'm doing, we try to ground them. And then we've got the executive phase, right? And those are the guys that are already kind of accelerated. They're making a lot of money. They're making over $10 million. And how do we help them get to that next level? And then the fourth piece are those that are so far ahead of everybody else. Those that are making $50 million and above, that we actually leverage their expertise to make sure that we help those beneath them learn. And then we help them develop through executive education. So this is kind of a pathway as to how we coach and how we teach some of the sessions that they need. So there's another thing that the Port of Seattle, I think, is important, is that our MBEs, we help them kind of balance their portfolio. Because if you're top heavy just in the public sector, you're gonna do well, you're gonna do fine. But when you expand into the private sector, that's where growth really begins to develop, right? Because the public sector is very, very steady. And it's very, very predictable. The private sector is unsteady, it's unpredictable, you don't know when things are going to happen. So when you marry the two together, you have this stability within your business portfolio, and then you have these peaks and valleys where you're actually growing and accelerating your organization. So you have to have that supplier diversification. Those are some of the things that we share with them. Your alignment has to be really to the client's business goals, but more importantly, it has to come with speed. You have to really, really bring speed to the equation, because now most companies are buying MBEs, they're buying small businesses because of the expertise that they bring it's easier to buy an organization like Tina Boyd Incorporated versus trying to build out a organization that does what Tina already does, what she already has the expertise. So that strategic alignment between minority businesses and organizations like the Port of Seattle and the private sector can be very, very beneficial and fruitful. So growing strategically, it's about how do you position yourself in the market? How do you create new revenues? You know, how do you expand your business? And then how do you improve the client's value delivery? And so when we talk about value with the MBEs, we always talk about supply chain and value chain, right? Where in the supply chain do you fit? Because you can't do everything. But then how does that enhance the value chain, right? So when we're working with Starbucks, where does Tina Boyd Inc. fit into the supply chain of Microsoft? So that as Microsoft, their value chain, as they deliver Windows to their clients, to their customers, what Tina contributed has enhanced the value to the customer. The supply chain directly affects the value chain. And we want to make sure that we don't just focus on the supply chain, but that we also focus on the value chain. So right here in this little what we call a brain cloud, this is just a little bit more of what we do in terms of our training and development for our minority businesses. We have specific classes around finance and accounting. This particular building your business plan, this is a great program. It's like 5 modules. Takes about 15 hours of virtual class time, but it takes about another 15 to 30 hours on your own. So we're not only instructing, but we're helping the MBEs learn on their own. And through these cohorts, we're helping them kind of work together collaboratively and grow the business, right? So this is part of our development pillar. So I won't read through all of them, but as you can see, you know, we've got a very, very stringent business assessment. And that will give you all kinds of feedback around where are you in your life cycle? What are the pitfalls that you're getting ready to run into? What are the counter pitfalls, right? How do you protect against those pitfalls? So we're very, very focused on the development of our minority businesses. But just like I said, we're focused on the development of our public agency members and our corporate members, because we have to have both of them talking on the same page to have success. Now, if we look at this cycle, everything that we do, and as at the beginning of the conversation, you heard me say that we're looking for economic value 3 generations down. And the way that we focus on that is through engaging minority businesses with the private sector, with the public sector, and driving economic value, right? Because when these companies grow, they can afford to pay their employees better. Their employees can afford to have livable wages. They can afford housing. They can afford to send their kids to school with full tummies, because we want those kids to have a great education. Because the next generation of, and I always look at 15 years out, because I'm looking at that from the kids that are in high school now, that are going to graduate from high school, go to college. In the next 15 years, they're going to be decision makers. And it's imperative on us that what we do, make sure that those kids are getting the education the best education that they possibly can. So when we talk about MBE business development and growth, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the children of these employees and of these business owners. When we talk about member and public agency support, how do we drive that business to these minority businesses, right? And then when the businesses when the port drives business to these minority firms, and we're enabled to hire more people, and we're enabled to invest in our communities, our tax base goes up, our school systems go up, our infrastructure goes up, it's improved. Now we've got the community that understands how important this is. So when we put all these three together, now we're talking about creating equity in the long run. Because it's not something that, and we've seen it. I was young during the 60s when civil rights was on, but I was still there, and I saw what happened, you know, when 2016 came about, and it just told me that we had made no progress. And so I think that we have to seize this opportunity right now to create equity, to educate our children so that our future is better. So if we tie business to the growth and development of our children of the future, our future decision makers, I think we're on the right path. So that's kind of like my presentation. You know, this is a very generic address where you can reach us at. I'll put my personal email in the chat so that everybody can access me whenever you would like, or for anything that you need. But this is really what we do in a nutshell. And I have to tell you, we've been very successful. I just put my email in the chat. We've been very successful because our focus is in helping businesses grow, helping public agencies get better at what they do, helping the private sector get better at what they do, right? And it's imperative that we, as a 501c3, we're paid employees. And this is important because we have no vested interest in anything other than the success of this organization. And we have no vested interest in anything other than the success of the people that we support. We just earn our salaries. We earn our wages, we earn salaries, but everybody in our office knows that that's the case. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I'd like to open it up to questions and answers. If there's anything that anybody would like to comment, I take your feed, you know, welcome your feedback, you know, just thoughts, questions,
Well,
anything.
I see Yvonne has her hand up. So go ahead, Yvonne.
Well, mine is more of a comment, Fernando, because I'm working with an organization called Washington Equity Now. That is, you mentioned I-200. It's actually not I-200 that's the culprit. The culprit is 9801, the Governor Locke's directive.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're working on trying to get the current governor, to sign an executive directive overturning 9801. We're real close. I don't know how it's supposed to happen as early as this month.
So you're working with Jesse Weinberg?
I am, yes.
Yeah, I know Jesse, and he and I have had many conversations around this, yes.
Okay, great. We meet every Saturday morning at 7 if you want to join us, 7:30.
Okay. But you're absolutely right. When Governor Locke wrote that directive, he basically gave everybody the opportunity to discriminate. And that's why Roger Millar from the Washington State Department of Transportation, that's why he supports our efforts, because he knows that the way that legislation is interpreted is discriminatory. And so I appreciate Roger's support in this effort.
Well, thank you, Fernando. I have a bunch of questions, unless somebody else has some immediate questions.
I see Tina has her hand up.
Okay, well, we'll go to Tina first. All right, Tina, you're up.
Mine was more just a comment. I just wanted to say it was the Port of Seattle. It was probably, gosh, Charles Blood days back in 2005 or 6. But, you know, when I said that the council is ahead of the game, they are always first to start talking about second tier contracting payments. We hadn't even heard of it. And I remember sitting in a workshop I think I was in DC when I first heard about second tier. And these are the kind of things that, you know, by joining the council that, you know, and I remember coming back to my organization and talking about it. And it was like 5 or 6 years later, we finally started counting second tier. And now we also counted it in consulting. So I just wanted to mention that. And I remember they were heavily talking about strategic alliances, which is, you know, sometimes it's hard for one type of business to get the contract. So what they do is they would 2 or 3 businesses that would come together and try to get the contract. And those were, I think, Fernando, you had some success with the strategic alliances. But, you know, the council is highly respected by King County. All the government agencies have known and worked with the council. So I was just, you know, basically making some comments here. I see he was commenting me.
Tina Boyd Inc.
I have a company now.
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Tina. No, it's you know, and just kind of like a so next week we're hosting what we call an executive summit, and what we're doing is we're actually unraveling the term supplier diversity again, right? Because as I said, supplier diversity was created 50 years ago.
Yeah,
well,
that's correct.
In many instances, they're still interpreting that the way it was, the way the economy was 50 years ago, right? We're trying to unravel it so that we can redefine it and make it relevant to what it's like now, right? So and it's an exercise. I was just looking at the numbers right now. We have about 34 people coming into this workshop where we're going to break out into breakout rooms and massage this new definition that we want to walk away with. You know, so that's the type of stuff that Tina's talking about. So we're always trying to be ahead of the game. Another event that we've got going is we've got on November 5th, we've got C-level executives. We're a 501c3, so we don't have a formal executive briefing center, but we're hosting an executive briefing event where we're actually bringing C-level executives. We're bringing the Federal Reserve Bank. We're bringing the chief technology officer from Microsoft to speak to these C-level executives about what's coming down the pike. How is inflation going to affect us in the next year or so? Because inflation is upon us, right? So we've got some really good conversations, and these are things that we're trying to make sure that our minority businesses that are in that room are understanding what the future looks like, so that they can align with the executives in that room as well. So
very exciting.
It is. It really is.
Can't wait to hear the outcome.
Thank you.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I have a few questions.
Please.
So you said nationally they were established in 1973.
Yes.
And so when was your region established? Was that at the same time?
So I'm just going to take 1 minute to go back, take a step back, Leslie, please, because when Richard Nixon signed the executive order, what he saw was that the federal government was doing $0 with Black businesses, because this entire organization started as a federally funded organization to do business with Black businesses. It was originally headquartered in Chicago. Since then, it's expanded into the 4 major ethnicities: Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, Alaska Natives, right? So those are the 4 ethnicities that we support. So they started in 73. We started in 78 because Boeing, that was doing a lot of business with the federal government, they had to comply with this guidance. So they actually came in and said, you know what, we have to start a procurement organization where we can start, identifying minority businesses that we can bring into the fold with us and do business with us. And so Boeing was our founding partner back in 1978, and to this day, they're still with us to this day. So, yeah.
Well, I actually reside in Eastern Washington, And in 2010, I went to work for Washington PTAC. And I have to tell you that you're like the best kept secret around because, you know, probably because of geography, I hadn't heard of your organization, but it's exciting to hear the things that are available in such a wide area, you know, Montana, Utah, you know, it's a big area. So I'm really glad that we had you here. One of the other things, when you talked about you certify
Yes.
these companies, so what kind of certification is that? And are they only small business, or do you, you know, do you address other than small businesses?
We have no size limitations, Leslie, in terms of who we certify, right?
Okay.
We do try to, when businesses come to us and they really haven't really gotten started, you know, we do kind of like help them, but in many times we guide them towards the SBA, we guide them towards other entities that really kind of like are willing to help them get situated, right? Because since public agencies and corporate members are depending on us to find businesses to help them, you know, those businesses are not going to be able to step in and do work for Microsoft, right? So, and then they get disappointed, right? They get upset and they go like, like you didn't do anything for me. Well, you know, that's why we kind of like discourage. But when they're in that incubator stage, that's where we start helping them like, hey, do you have a business plan? No. Do you have marketing collateral? No. Well, we can help you with all this, right? And so we try to identify who are the ones that we can actually help get started so that we can get them into the accelerator model in about 2 years. And who are those that we really need to kind of like have them come back once they've been in business for a second. But our certification is really recognized by some of the public agencies, not all, because some of the public agencies only recognize the OMWBE certification, right? So, but nationally, the private sector acknowledges our certification. The feds acknowledge our certification. The state doesn't, but the feds do. And so that's who we are. Now, the requirement is that you have to be 51% ethnic minority owned. You have to run the business day to day, and those are the key elements, right?
So do you also factor into those certifications the keywords of socially and economically disadvantaged?
So we're strictly focused on those 4 ethnicities that I've described, Leslie, right? We follow the definition of the feds, right, when it comes to those ethnicities. But we don't certify DBEs. We don't certify, you know, because right now the big push is, you know, some Middle Easterners are economically disadvantaged, right? Some, you know, depending on where you come from, you can be economically disadvantaged. And so we're kind of like in that stage right now where we're focused on our 4 ethnicities, but we're also looking at who else. Again, the way we started 50 years ago is not necessarily how we do business now, right? So do we have to expand? Do we have to open up? And that conversation is in process right now. I belong to the National Field Operations Committee. And what we do is we look at problems throughout the country. And from a field operations perspective, we look and see like, okay, so is this a problem that we should tackle? It's a problem we can tackle. And then if our corporate members say, no, this is outside of scope of what we're looking to do, then we avoid it. But otherwise, we'll put our hands in it.
So in the certification process, what types of documentation do you need to verify them as, you know, the minority that you're looking at? You know, are they birth certificates? Are they, you know, financials? You know, what, you know, just
So-
a short list of things that you look at.
Yes, absolutely. And what I'll do, let me make a note to myself, Leslie, about the cert requirements. Now, depending on whether you're a sole proprietor or whether you're a C Corp or S Corp, it may require different levels of documents, right? The sole proprietor requires more than the C Corp because it's more independent. But we do require proof of ethnicity, right? Whether that can be through a passport, whether that can be through a birth certificate, whether it's through your parents' death certificate. There are multiple levels of certificates that will actually state your certification, right? So my birth certificate says that I'm white. So I would have to bring in my grandma's birth certificate that is from Mexico in order to qualify as a Latino business.
Wow.
My dad is, but we make it very hard intentionally because you'd be surprised how many people try to get through the system.
Well, and
so,
you know that's a really good point, because my grandmother's naturalization papers show her as white, but you know, she came from Mexico.
yes.
And you know, and there's no birth certificate to be found.
Wow.
So there's,
but she has a very ethnic maiden name, and then she married this other guy that had kind of an ethnic Hispanic name. But yeah, no, it's difficult. Yeah, what this sounds like is kind of like, you know, if you wanted citizenship in Ireland, you know, you have to have proof of ethnicity connecting you to Ireland. And it's the same thing. The birth certificates, even though they're, you know, deceased for decades, you know, you still have to track down those materials. But that's good. So yeah, if you could send me a checklist, and then that would help me. I actually cover the Olympic Peninsula, and so I'm not doing a lot of work, or I'm not really doing any work for Eastern Washington, but I do cover the Olympic Peninsula, and the client base that I have there is, you know, fits your criteria for, you know, just what we've talked about today. So it would be good for me to be able to recommend your organization to them.
I'd love to. I'd love that.
To move
and it's you know, and it is sometimes it's very difficult to prove ethnicity, and some people say like, hey, you know what, it's not worth my time. Okay, that's fine, you know, but our corporate members hold us to that level of accountability, right? So so if we were to kind of like, so two things. One, if we were to kind of like take it easy, you know, we run the risk of allowing somebody that's not an ethnic minority to get certified. But two, everybody that we certified in advance of that would be, they would sue us because we didn't give them the same opportunity, right? So we have to be very, very, that's one thing that we hold true. And I'm not, you know, I'm the type of person that when people say, well, it's the policy, that means that you really don't understand the policy, right? So you're just spouting, this is the policy, and because you haven't really thought about it, right? So, but we're always looking at it from we understand what the policy is, but we also have to understand where the nuances are so that we can talk about it. I just, right before the call, I had a conversation with our certification manager about one of our firms in Chicago. And I said, hey, you know what? Just based on what he said, I'm not inclined to, and I think it was a misstatement by him, but he said something that disclosed something new that, in my opinion, doesn't put them in the right position, right? And so
Yeah.
we understand what it takes, but we also understand, you know, the parameters of where we work, right?
I have a comment in regards to that. You work with Native American owned companies. Have you run into any situation in which the person is a US citizen, but their native heritage is Canadian? And do you honor that? With the US, the federal certifications, we run into problems with them not being a federally recognized tribal member. So I had one client who was a Canadian native, who was a US citizen, who I managed to get his DBE certification because OMWBE assisted with tracing the fact that that tribe was a border tribe. So therefore they would allow them to have their DBE certification. But that is especially here in Washington where we touch Canada, it's a much more common issue.
Marnie, thank you for asking that question. Actually, I just mentioned that I'm on the Field Services Committee. That's one of the things that we're actually looking at, because we have so many Aboriginals from Canada that want to certify here, because Boeing does business in Canada, you know, GM does business in Canada, a lot of cross-border business, and they're wanting to, you know, leverage that certification that they get from our sister council in Canada and take advantage of it here in the United States. So we're working on that one so that we can see if we can reciprocate. I've been of the opinion that we should be reciprocating all the way along, right? But now we're actually working on creating, on really kind of unraveling it and understanding, is this something that we will build a reciprocal certification? Because you're right, it's that US citizenship. And in Canada, there's different ethnicities that are accepted. And so, and that's where, for example, you know, we accept American Eastern Indian, right? In Canada, they accept Eastern Indian. You don't have to be Canadian, you don't have to be American. They accept Eastern Indian, and they certify them. So for us, it creates this conflict, right? And so that's what we're working on right now.
It's those definitions that are tricky.
Exactly.
I've run into that recently with the state of Washington, where the state of Washington small business identifier has a different definition than the veteran-owned business identifier for where the business is located, what the principal officer headquarters, like that terminology. So there's so many certifications out there. They all have their own definition lists. They all have their own interpretation lists, and it's exceedingly important for especially a small business who's trying to navigate all of this legalese, how it affects their business, how it potentially benefits their business. Are they actually eligible for these? It's so important for them to seek support, and your support, our support, whatever support they can get their hands on, help them navigate these. It is so important, because you know that those tiny little nuances are tricky. They're very tricky.
It is.
So, Fernando, I also had a question, if you got a moment.
Yes, of course.
I was wondering, just actually looking at you throughout this presentation, you look almost exactly like my grandfather. And the question I've run into with a lot of my clients, I personally am, my grandfather was born in Sonora, Mexico. So I'm at about 25% when it comes to the Hispanic heritage. But I ended up with a pretty solid upbringing between my mother and my grandfather. You know, throughout the generations, they've worked their way through to a pretty solid, reasonable lifestyle. And I don't face anything in the way of minority discrimination. I don't even flag that. But these clients I run into, some of them are far more ethnic than I am. And what level would you say I should encourage them to go out and pursue certifications? So, like, for example, if I just went with the birth certificate thing, I think I could probably say, well, 25% Hispanic, you know, I could probably certify it for myself, but I don't feel like that's necessary on my end. However, on your end, would you recommend that?
So, Andrew, great question, and And I got to tell you, I've had a lot of clients that say like, I'm not going to do that because I don't want anybody knowing that I'm ethnic, and I don't want anybody thinking that I'm in this because I'm an ethnic guy and that I want any favors, right? I want to prove myself based on my capabilities, based on my competencies, based on my qualifications, right? And great, I appreciate it, because the certification certificate is going to come into play when all things are equal. Everything is equal. Cost of quality, cost of pricing, everything. That certificate is going to be the winner. That's what's going to drive the winner, right? So if you and I are competing, Andrew, for some business, and we're identical in our bid, we're like verbatim in terms of what we're going to deliver. The fact that I have a certificate of ethnicity is probably going to tip it for me. So I say that because so many times when people have said to me like, oh man, I don't want to do this. And then when they realize like, man, I should have done this 10 years ago because it's helped my business so much, right? So my advice is get it done. You never lead with it, right? And that's what, and we really educate our minority businesses. You never lead with it. You don't sell it because it'll sell itself. Because when Starbucks wants to do business with you, they're going to do business with you because of what you bring to the table. And by the way, hey, Kelly, did you know that I'm certified as a Latino business? And she's going to go like, holy cow! I just great, So it's everybody that has. I won't say everybody, but the majority of the people that have told me I don't want to do this, when they finally do it, Andrew, they they regret the fact that they didn't do it years early because of what it does for them. If it really creates it's that equalizer. It breaks that equal status, right? It'll put you ahead of the next guy just because of that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's just been so many instances I've ever run into it, and probably 50% of my clients have just a little bit of ethnicity in the background where they're at like 25 to 40%, and they don't know if they should pursue it. And if they're native, of course, that's one where you only, I think, need 25 for most circumstances, and you just go. But when you get into the Hispanic ethnicity in particular, you look at me and you would never guess it. Well, maybe if I shave the beard a little bit and change some things, I could. But realistically, my clients, I think of this one gentleman, he's absolutely nothing whatsoever looking. But when you look at his gene pool, he was actually like 45% Hispanic. And I tried to push him into it, but it was the same speech. It's just that, I don't need that kind of a leg up. I can just prove myself. And it didn't end up working out for him. And I just wanted to get a solid line on which way to advise people of that. Because
I think it's all things being equal, Andrew, it'll be the tiebreaker. I guarantee it. Because I've seen it time and time again. And as I mentioned, everybody that has had that type of conversation with me has regretted, once they certify, the network that it creates, the opportunities that it opens up. They just go like, man, I should have done this 10 years ago. It's not about the certification. It's what goes along with the certification, right? And I had this conversation with the national organization last week. I said, the certification is a process that we follow. And that's where we can really kind of delineate who the real minority businesses are versus who are not. But it's the services that follow, it's the development activities that we provide, right? It's the networking that we provide. It's that suite of services, Andrew, that'll make the difference. It's not giving them a leg up. It's just putting them in a different position to where they can engage with some real decision makers.
Yeah, I think the networking is probably one of your bigger advantages that a lot of people aren't thinking about, because it's the networking. It's literally having more plates to choose from is going to determine your outcome. And if you're limiting yourself to a pool this big, then you're not going to get all the opportunities.
Exactly.
I have to say, Fernando, that I used to go to were they like lunch and learns, lunch meetings years ago. And I loved it because I would meet everybody, not just people doing government contracting, but I met Boeing, I met the Starbucks guy. I was able to meet everybody. And, you know, I focus on government contracting. That's what I do. But it's nice to have those in your back pocket when somebody comes and they're interested in government contracting, but it's not the right fit for them. I can say, well, have you considered Starbucks as an opportunity? This is the person you want to talk to and ask the questions of. So it's not just, you know, one-on-one networking, meeting the person you want to talk to, but it's meeting the person the next person you want to talk to needs to talk to, and sharing that information. It's a wonderful community. I really do miss those lunch meetings that you guys used to have. But it was a great place just to meet with people, find out what they're doing, and increase the potential of work partners that you have out there.
And Marty, what we're going to start doing is, again, we're trying to do as much as we can virtually, but what we're going to start doing is we're going to start bringing in like lunch and learn, just bringing our corporate members and bring in 2 of our MBs just to present 15 minutes each, you know, and that's it, you know, and no strings attached, no, you know, but just the network that will be created there. The ability for the minority business to really display their skills and their talents is gonna net some really good results for us.
Nice. Let us know when you start those up. We'll be
I
happy
will.
to share them with our community too.
Thank you.
Will they be online?
Well, the first one was through the end of this year, Yvonne. Yes, but right now we're focused on a couple of things. One, we're focused on our executive summit and our annual conference, and then our executive briefing. And then in November, we typically do our new board member training. So the team comes in and we spend half a day with the new board members, kind of orienting them to everything that everybody does. So probably the first one will be in December, and it'll be virtual. And then we'll see how the new year rolls out as to whether we can open up. I'm not too hopeful about the new year rolling out to be something where we can come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Fernando. My last question that I have for you is, I noticed that you referenced in your, what's it called, your cloud tags, the University of Washington. And I know the Foster School of Business is a tremendous resource for agencies. But I also saw that you listed, was it Tuck School or Tucker School? So where is it?
In New Hampshire.
Oh, well, that's pretty awesome. Okay. That's
and again, those are for those business owners that like, they're like, we need to expose them to the academia now, right? And let them take that academia and bring it in and put it to use, right? So because they kind of like, they know how to run their business, they've grown their business, and so those are guys. And typically what we do is we send them to UW first, and then once they've completed the UW program, then maybe a year or two later we'll send them to Tech.
Wow, what a great opportunity for these small businesses and maybe the not so small businesses to have you. And seriously, I really wish that I would have known about your existence decades ago. But I'll try to make up for lost time and get your information out to my clients on the Olympic Peninsula, and then moving forward also.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you so much. And we're getting close to letting Mr. Martinez call it a day. So if anybody has any more questions, now is your time. And if not, thank you, Fernando.
If I can make one more comment about the UW program, and Tina, I don't know, you know this, right, Tina? So we started the UW program in 2008, and it was in 2006 that we were at a reception, And I met with one of the gentlemen that was working at UW, Sean, and we were at a reception, and I said, Sean, I said, why don't we have an executive program for minorities at University of Washington? And he says, I don't know, man. And I said, well, I said, let's do this. True story, we mapped out that program on a napkin, on a cocktail napkin over beer. And that's how that program started. So I'm very proud of the fact that the council was integral. We were one of the original developers of that program in partnership with the University of Washington. It was great. It was great. So anyhow, thank you guys so much for spending time with me. I appreciate it. And I put my email address in the chat. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out.
We will do that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Yvonne and Tina for coming, and Marnie and Andrew and Heather. And so Aisha, okay, so I'm going to hand this off to Aisha for a few closing remarks. And Tina, if you have any more remarks. So Aisha first.
There's a baby crying. I hope you can't hear that too loudly. But I just want to say thank you so much for presenting with us today. It was very informative, and I learned so much today. So just want to say thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll leave you guys so you guys can handle your business, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna sign off as well. Thank you
All right.
all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.